Solidify this.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this public defense of Sherif Hamdy. My name is Nikolai. I'm a professor at the University of Leuven in Belgium, and I'm your guide for this morning. And today is really the end point of a long journey that started a couple of years ago, during which Sherif has come up with new hypotheses. He has designed and carried out experiments, analyzed the data, wrote them up in papers that he presented at conferences, wrote journal articles, and in the end, he put everything together in a dissertation that the jury members have now read. Today, we are going to first listen to the presentation of Sherif. Then I'm going to give the opportunity to the jury members to ask questions and to interact with somebody. With Sherif. After that, the jury is going to retreat. We are going to discuss a few things like the quality of the presentation, the quality of the dissertation. Then we'll come to a conclusion, and then we'll come back, and then normally there should be a proclamation if all goes well. Okay. So that's the program of today. But first, we're going to start with the presentation of Sherif, which is going to be lasting like 3/4 of an hour, 15 minutes.
Around 15 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. So the floor is yours.
So, good morning and welcome, everyone. Today, I'm going to present to you my thesis on contributions to computer vision and machine learning for safe, high throughput, non-destructive quality analysis and phenotyping. This work is a collaboration between GEVES and University of Angers, and it's supervised by Professor David Rousseau from University of Angers, Dr. Salarié from GEVES, and Professor Benjamin Rusty from the University of Angers.
Can you check the EFU so just like that? And
So thank you for coming, and let's get started. Seeds are the foundation of agriculture, food security, and biodiversity. Seed quality is a key determinant of germination capacity, seedling vigor, and resistance to external stressors. A low-quality seed might result in poor plant development, poor germination, and eventually economic losses. For this reason, seed testing has long been an important and official activity. In order to ensure that only healthy seeds and get into the chain of agriculture and production, also to minimize or to lower the biosecurity risks, and eventually to guarantee the compliance with international regulations. Seed testing also is a main activity at GEVES, and mostly we follow international standardized activities for seed testing, such as variety testing, germination, purity, and health. However, some of these activities, as much as they are informative and reliable, some of them they have some issues, such as that they are heavily dependent on analyst experience. So sometimes they are prone to error or subjectivity. Also, they are mostly limited to external traits. So in some cases, we fail to reveal the internal structure of the seeds. Some analyses are destructive. So eventually, we might lose some quantity of the seeds. Some of them would take a huge time to obtain the results, such as days or weeks. Finally, in some types of analysis, seeds might contain dust and chemicals, so that might pose health and safety risks to the analysts. As a solution, and with the development of technology, imaging techniques were presented as a powerful solution to these limitations in the conventional seed testing. And because most of the imaging techniques are non-destructive, so the seeds remain viable or intact. Also, we can have detailed and rapid observations on the seeds, and they are versatile. They could work on different species. Some of these techniques are the RGB imaging, also the spectral imaging, and the fluorescence. These imaging techniques are super powerful. We were able to apply classifications and to detect some of the defects or to understand metabolic activities. However, they have mostly low penetration. So we fail to reveal the inside of the seeds. And here comes the powerful aspect of X-ray imaging, because they mostly can reveal on the inside of the objects. So X-rays are high energy electromagnetic waves with short wavelengths. They are produced when accelerated electrons hit or interact with metal targets. So eventually we generate the radiation. The attenuated or the absorbed X-rays, the X-rays get attenuated or absorbed depending on the object thickness, density, and the composition of the material or the object we are scanning. So it's mostly physically non-destructive, and the X-ray image eventually is formed based on the X-ray that got attenuated or absorbed versus the X-rays that got through. So it shapes a density map of the scanned object. It's mostly used for inspection of internal structure. We have two common X-ray systems. The first is radiography, which is obtained by a single X-ray projections through the object. So eventually we have a 2D image. It's mostly fast, and image acquisition might take takes a few seconds. So it's mostly used for rapid screening or rapid analysis. The second modality or the X-ray system is tomography, in which the image acquisition is acquired or obtained by having multiple X-ray projections through objects, and eventually we apply the image reconstruction. So we combine these multiple hundreds or thousands of 2D slices into a 3D image. It's mostly slower. An image acquisition might take minutes to hours, but it can reveal the very fine details of the objects. X-ray imaging is already established in this field. There are previous work that have applied X-ray imaging on the seed analysis. However, one of the main issues in this field is the fragmentation of knowledge. So we have solved this by providing a comprehensive synthesis that would give to any analyst or any person that would like to integrate the X-ray imaging. We give them ideas on how to prepare samples, the X-ray modalities, and the current techniques for image analysis and data analysis. We also provided a roadmap for integration, and we would like to highlight that X-ray analysis on this period is mainly and heavily dependent on visual inspection. Recently, in the recent decades, image processing was applied on the images to automate the process and to do more complex tasks. And finally, and very recently, artificial intelligence emerged and has been applied on the X-ray images for seed analysis. Some of these X-ray applications are using radiography, as in the previous studies, contain the inspection of internal structures, such as looking for malformation or empty seeds, also for detecting mechanical damages, and also for detecting insect damages. Other state-of-art applications on the tomography, they use tomography for more detailed morphological characterization, also for evaluating the infestation level on seed lots, and finally to study some effects such as morphology on germination. While it's well established, like the X-ray imaging is well established on the seeds. However, we find that it suffers a few issues. The first is uncertainty about X-ray safety. As germination is the main survival and viability indicator, we cannot integrate any X-ray imaging without being sure about the effects. State of art has shown that there are lots of contradictory effects of X-ray exposure on seed germination. Thus, we need to validate this imaging technique regarding to physiology. Second main challenging point is that there is no standard X-ray imaging protocol. Unlike imaging techniques that applied on human, for example, there are mainly it's very well standardized and regulated. On seeds, imaging parameters are adjusted subjectively, so each analyst might choose his own. And sometimes there could be degraded image quality resulting from these subjectivities, such as noise or loss of details. And this variability in choice of imaging parameters affects directly the ability to build image processing techniques or algorithms that are reliable and robust. Their challenging point is the lack of large annotated data sets. So compared to different fields such as medical imaging, the annotated X-ray data sets remain very limited to our knowledge. A fourth point is that data scarcity and structural complexity. In some cases, we might have very imbalanced data sets because there are rare, for example, rare physical defects or rare classes or type of seeds. Also, another point is the seed treatments that we will go into details on that point later. The fifth point is limited integration over artificial intelligence. We might see artificial intelligence is well integrated in medical imaging, industries such as cars. However, seed analysis is somehow still relies on the visual inspection, which makes it low throughput and analyst dependent. So we try to investigate these critical challenges that we have just shared with you, and that facing X-ray seed analysis by addressing three research questions. The first is, does using X-rays for seed quality analysis and phenotyping impact germination? The second, how to reliably use radiography and AI models to detect seed defects and insect damage across different species and varying imaging conditions. The third is, without massive data sets or exhaustive annotation, RCT, which is tomography, tomography imaging and unsupervised learning, effective and reliable for detecting contaminants in pelleted seeds. So now we have laid the research introduction. We'll try to respond on every research question in the following three chapters, and finally we will end with the conclusion and our future work and perspective. So Let's start with the physiological validation. As germination is a reliable and survival indicator for most of plant species. So while imaging analysis or imaging acquisition using X-ray, seeds are often exposed to non-optimized doses. The main focus of the analyst is to obtain a high-quality image rather than measuring the X-ray dose that the seed is exposed to, and they do not take into account the variability of seed morphology, for example. Prior studies have reported contradictory effects on the X-rays. Some have said that there is a positive effect of X-rays on the germination. Some have said there is a negative one, and eventually some they said there is no effect. So we have hypothesis that the reason behind this contradiction is coming from variability in methodology that was applied. Also, the lack of standard imaging and germination protocols applied during the study. And finally, that we found that there is insufficient reporting on other influences that might interact with the X-rays, such as physical quality or genetics or morphology. So our objective in that study is to systematically evaluate and quantify the impact of soft X-rays on diverse plant materials and determine the possible influence of genetics in varieties or seed quality of lots and seed traits such as size and density on the impact of X-rays. We also aim to resolve the contradiction that's in literature. So for the future, analysts or laboratory can use it confidently in their routine. For this, we used our design comprise 7 species, which are bean, carrot, fennel, maize, radish, regra, and soybean. For each species, we have used 5 different varieties, and for every variety, we have used 2 different lots. For every lot, we have used 200 seeds, which makes around 14,000 seeds. And then there we have 2 modalities. The first is a control group and the exposed group. Both groups have followed a standard germination protocol so that we can really judge the results, and that's not coming from the randomness. While exposing the seeds to X-ray, we have measured the X-ray dose. Also, after that, from the 2D radiographs images, we have extracted various morphological traits, and eventually we have from the images. And as while these 2D features are very informative that we can analyze, but they are incomplete. For this reason, we have constructed 7 calibration datasets. So a dataset per species. Every dataset contained 100 representative seeds, and these seeds at a time they were acquired for CT volumes, then 2D projections and mass using precision scale. After that, we established a relationship between the 2D projection and the 3D structures. So that we were able to recover the volumetric traits, such as the volume and the thickness of the seeds. Also, we were able to estimate the average density of each species that we worked. Our statistical analysis showed that low dose X-rays do not impair the germination. So we can consider the X-ray analysis or low dose X-rays as safe and non-destructive method. We also have observed that there is a high variability in control groups, that different varieties from the same species do not have the same germination, and different lots that belong to the same variety as well, they do not give result in the same germination, which is expected variability, even without the X-rays. Regarding to X-rays, we have noticed a stimulatory trend where we have noticed a decrease in ungerminated seeds and eventually increase in normal germination seeds. It was mostly a trend except for phenol that showed a significant effect of around 5% in increase in normal seedlings. We also have noticed contradictory effects that, such as previous studies. In some cases, which was in soybean, we have also noticed a very slight increase in abnormality and ungerminated seeds after exposing them to X-rays. However, we also have observed that significant interactions of X-rays with varieties. So varieties of the same species to react differently to X-rays, and lots from the same varieties react to X-ray differently as well. So the genetic background and lot quality determine germination capacity, and we found that they are so linked to X-ray sensitivity. We wanted to look further on this and to resolve this contradiction. For that reason, we decided to analyze the seed quality or physical quality of the exposed seeds, so that we have analyzed if there is mechanical damage, insects damage, or empty seeds. We have observed that fennel and soybeans, they have very deteriorated physical quality, and our results showed that physical quality explained the contradictory responses. When the seed has low quality and X-rays stimulate these seeds, they might germinate, but this seedling is abnormal. When the quality of the seed is quite very low, the seed becomes vulnerable and sensitive to stress, so they fail germination. So the negative X-ray effects arise only when pre-existing damage is amplified by the X-rays. We have looked also into the seed size, if they have any influence on the sensitivity to X-rays, and we didn't find any significant correlation regarding to this. Conventionally, and that was found in in many papers, bigger seeds tend to have bigger or better germination. However, we have some observation that we have seen on the soybean that's totally different from the what we've seen in the literature. We have found that larger soybean seeds have lower normal germination. However, by looking into their physical quality, larger soybeans had much higher insect damages. So we cannot just look at the morphometric traits without looking at this seed physical quality, which was not introduced in previous research, because there might be large seed, but what about the reserve inside? For this reason, we have looked to the density of the seeds. So density reflects the seed reserve composition, such as proteins, carbohydrates, and oils. In our study, in our results, we found that density predicts the germination much better than the seed size. For example, we can notice that there are species that always have high germination, and some other have typically lower germination. And here the density resolves this problem and helps us to understand the pattern. For example, we have observed that species with density that are higher than 1 gram per centimeter always tend to have at least 90% germination. And this explains the interspecies variability that we observe all the time. Also, for species such as phenol that have quite lower density, they have lower germination baseline, and eventually they might get impacted significantly by the X-rays. So in conclusion, we demonstrated that low-dose radiography is non-destructive, and we resolved the contradictions that was in literature. Also, our design is systematic, so we can evaluate the impact of X-rays using multi-species, multi-variety, and multi-lots. And we have used around 14,000 seeds and using standard germination protocols to avoid any randomness in the results. We also proposed reproducible imaging parameters. So in case any analyst would like to use the X-ray or the dose that we have reported in our results, they can expect some certain germination response after this analysis. We also have shown that there are critical cofactors that influence the response of X-rays, such as the seed physical quality, genetics, and seed density. And the contradictory responses of X-ray arise mainly from these factors. Our study have some limitations, and in the future it could be looked into, such as we explored only the low doses, so higher doses that might come from other X-ray analysis or modalities such as the tomography should be looked into. Also, we focused on the short-term effects of which was germination. So in the future, long-term impacts such as the seedling development or the plant growth should be investigated. Further investigations should be also conducted across more botanical families or genotypes, or taking into account the genetics or the storage conditions. We might also use benefit from AI advances to develop a model that could recommendation system that could guide the analyst on the doses that should be used in such cases. And finally, that could also integrate predictive model using the density and morphology and quality metrics to guide the imaging process. Now, as we have validated the physiological safety of low dose X-rays, we can shift our focus now to the rest of the problems and to confidently apply X-rays on the seeds. For example, and to solve the imaging variability that we have seen before, also to integrate AI more, and to compensate or to solve the problem of imbalanced data sets. For this, we start the second, the next chapter on defect detection. At my laboratory at GEVES, we frequently analyze strategic species, two strategic species, which are faba bean, that is a high protein legume and widely used for human food and animal feeds. Also, the sugar beet, that's one of the main global crops that is used for sugar production across the world. And they both, at the same time, we have observed that they represent two different quality issues. The first is structure issue that happens during the development of sugar beet seeds. And the second is a biotic problem, as insects get inside the faba beans and destroy on the inside, which causes huge losses. So The current imaging analysis that is still based on visual analysis needs high attention, causes fatigue, and still could happen that it's subjective and prone to errors. As previously mentioned, there is no standardization regarding to the X-ray imaging parameters. So for radiography, for example, these three parameters are still adjusted subjectively. So some images, for example, the tube voltage might lead to contrast and visibility issues. Exposure time as well, that might be oversaturation or noise, and magnification factor that could cause detectability issues, as the object might be too small or too big, so we lose information. So this makes it hard to develop robust imaging processing algorithms, and we can have same seeds but different results. Also, we found that we don't have much annotated data sets in case we would like to apply artificial intelligence. And as we have said, the data in real are very imbalanced. So training AI models such as they are would make models quite extremely biased towards some certain classes. So our hypothesis is that if we use deep learning, we can automate a different defect detection in radiography image, also increase the throughput and improve the consistency. The second hypothesis is that a robust training strategy will compensate for the imbalance and the imaging variability regardless the model architecture. So regarding to deep learning, there have been very few early uses of deep learning on X-ray seed analysis. For example, they have been used for classifying seeds based on their physical integrity, also for semantic segmentation, for segmenting different parts of the seed, such as pericarp, or identify if they are monogerm or multigerm. There have been also classification of watermelon seeds, which was semi-automatic, not fully automatic. And finally, there has been classifying seeds based on healthy or damaged seeds. So we build on this previous work by integrating more types of defects on two different species that they have two different issues, and also different issues, and also we address a problem that has not been addressed before on the radiography image analysis regarding to defects, which is imaging variability and imbalance in the data. We use X-ray imaging for acquiring the image, and then we use X-robustifier, which is our data processing unit, and finally we use the output data set for training deep learning models that we will see later. Regarding to image acquisition, we have two separate data sets, which are sugar beads data sets, which comprise 158 X-ray images of around 8,000 seeds, and we have three different classes: monogerm, multigerm, and empty. For faba beans, we have around 200 X-ray images of around 4,700 seeds. They were all high quality and annotated by two experts by drawing bounding box around the object. For faba beans, we have two classes, which is healthy beads and damaged seeds. So our X-robustifier, which is one of our contribution, it's a pipeline that's designed for simulation of realistic acquisition variability. It aims to improve the generalization across different classes and different imaging conditions. and it enables reliable automated defect detection in X-ray images. To start, the first part of our pipeline is about seed extraction using the information of the previous annotation of the experts. The second unit here, it handles the imbalance of the scales and the imbalance of the classes and the different scales that we might have in the during the X-ray imaging. It starts by downsampling the majority classes to meet to have equal size as the minority classes. After that, we apply geometric data augmentation on all the seeds, and eventually we have all classes are equally represented at all possible scales that we might see in the X-ray image. The third point unit of our pipeline handles the imaging variability regarding to tube voltage and exposure time. So the radiographs are synthetically reassembled, and after that we do noise simulation and photometric data augmentation. And eventually we have the result is a training data set that's well imbalanced. All classes are well represented and all possible distortion on the image are well present. So we use three for deep learning, which is the final part of the pipeline, three state-of-the-art object detection architecture, which was faster RCNN and YOLO 5 and SSD were used. And the main goal here is to identify the seed class and localize each seed within the image. For each species, we trained the three architectures on two different training conditions. The first is a baseline, which we train on the very original X-ray dataset. And the second is using X-robustifier. We train these three architecture on the datasets generated by this pipeline. So after that, we have two experiments. The first is on the performance gain. We would like to evaluate if the model that are trained on X-robustifier had gained any performance compared to the model trained on the original dataset. And also, we would like to compare the models of AI to the human experts. Second experiment is on robustness of imaging, robustness to imaging variability. So the models that are trained on X-robustifier, we would like to see if they can provide high performance despite the distortion in the imaging variability. So we have noticed that our baseline model were species and classes dependent, so they would perform better on some classes and some other not due to the imbalance. So we solved this, and X-robustifier have achieved notable gains and stability. So the models were stable regardless to the species or the classes, and they give similar detection on different classes of at least 96%. Regarding to benchmarking of humans, of our best AI models compared to the human experts. So we have noticed that our best AI model would give similar or better performance compared to the experts. We have noticed that they have, for experts, they might have some gaps regarding to performance or regarding to the time. So an analyst might take the double of time of another one. Also, our AI models have performed, as we said, quite well at 15 to 50 times faster based on the species. And this is not because of the model itself, it's because of the analyst. They have species-dependent performance. Regarding to robustness to imaging variability, all the models have shown nice gains compared to the baseline models, and also quite high performance on regardless to the noise level on the three different imaging parameters that we have seen. So in a conclusion, we have provided a high throughput deep learning framework for non-destructive detection of different seeds. And compared to previous works, we have integrated, we have solved the imaging variability and also provided a solution for a wider range of seed defects. And also we solved the problem of the class imbalance. So XRobustIfier enables the creation of hybrid synthetic training datasets that compensates for the problems we have mentioned. Also, the model trained with our approach reach a very high detection performance on real datasets and similar or better performance as human experts at 50 to 50 times faster. The limitations of our work and the future work that could be applied, we focused on supervised deep learning, which requires sufficient amount of data and balanced and annotated data sets. But what if we don't have any examples of the defects? So here that might be a problem, so we need to investigate the unsupervised learning. We also focused on 2D radiography, which is limited regarding to seed complexity and occlusion. So we should investigate more complex modalities such as 3D tomography. And we should automate further manual tasks such as depilating using artificial intelligence. For now, we're going to go to the third chapter, which is on unsupervised contaminant detection in pelleted seeds using tomography and unsupervised learning. So seed pelleting is seed enhancement technology that involves adding inert material or fillers to improve seed handling, or seedling establishment, or cold tolerance, or protect the seeds from the pests. However, there are current issues as we add these materials. We have now a black box, which makes which in that case potentially undesired contaminant would be on the inside that might cause biosecurity threats. There are already two existing destructive methods. One is official, which is manual depilating that might take at least 15 minutes for depilating 100 seeds. Second is internally developed at GEVES, which is germination tests that might take at least 7 days to know the results. There might be also some chemicals that exist on the pelleted seeds. So this might cause hygiene and safety concerns to the analysis. Only two studies have tried to solve this problem. One is at GEVES and one is external. The first is, but they found that using radiography, for example, there are two limitations. The first is regarding to imaging, and second is regarding to the AI. Regarding to using radiography and the methodology, radiography is not applicable because of the occlusion and the structure overlap. They're very low contrast, and as depilated are not standardized. So there's the image contrast is very poor, and we cannot use conventional image processing to develop something. For this reason, we need a higher resolution and more complex X-ray imaging, which is tomography. Also, regarding to supervised artificial intelligence, we have seen before, it requires sufficient amount of fully annotated 3D datasets. which will take much time, and also we have a finite number of contaminants. Any other species could be potentially a contaminant. Also, it's impossible to collect the contaminant intactly because we need to open the seeds out to know what's inside. And there's a very low contamination rate that's could be around or less 1% in some cases. So here we cannot apply methods such as or approaches such as supervised AI, and here there is a motivation for unsupervised learning. And we have two main species that are frequently analyzed at GEVES. First is sugar beet, which get analyzed around 16 to 800 samples per year, and they represent a very low contamination of less than 1%. The second is chicory. Which represents it's another frequent pelleted seed analysis, and the contamination rate is around 8% and of different species. Unsupervised learning has been used on has never been used on seeds before. However, it has been used on a close field, which was on the fruit. So it has been used on RGB imaging and X-rays and hyperspectral in order to detect the defects. Their main goal is, or the main objective is to train them on pure or healthy samples, so we would be able to detect if something different arrives. We adopt a similar approach by using 3D beta variational autoencoders that we train on pure seeds that we would like, that we are sure that we will have in our seed samples. So our approach is starts by acquiring CT images, and as CT images are large and most of the cases they have empty parts such as the background, we would like to focus our learning only on the important part. For that reason, we extract the seeds, and at the same time, we keep track of their position of the real world position. After that, we use the pure seeds to train our variational autoencoder, so that they learn the representation of a pure seeds at a very low dimension, or using the minimal representations of the seeds. After that, the decoder tries to generate a similar image to the input by minimizing the difference between the input and the output. So the model keeps learning by trying to minimize the reconstruction and the input, which are our pure seeds. If ever there is a contaminant, which is a different species than the model has learned, the model is going to try to reconstruct the seeds based on what it had learned before. And if the reconstruction and the input are too different, we will have a high reconstruction error or difference between them. And here we can detect the contaminant. To evaluate our this approach on two different species, we used either sugar beet or chicory as pure, and we artificially contaminated the samples by using 4 different species that could be similar or too different in order to check the model performance on them. We evaluated the models on different batches with decreasing purity from 100, so model does not have any contaminant, down to 50% of contamination. Also, we performed 2 experiments. The first is determining the minimal data size needed to obtain reliable anomaly detection from 100 up to 1,000. And we have found out that more data tend to give lower error, so the model learn better. However, we found that the quantity of data is species dependent. So complex morphology would require more data. For example, sugar beet seeds would require more data, which is around 800 compared to chicory, which required 700. So second experiment was regarding determining how sensitive the detection performance is to the amount of the structural information retained by the model, which are in the latent space dimensionality. We have used various latent space dimensions, and we have also noticed an interesting observation that complex morphology would require larger latent space. So our best models from the previous experiments were used and were evaluated on held out validation sets, on only pure sets, so that we can establish a threshold at the 99th percentile that flags contaminations after this. After that, we tested our models on the contaminated datasets. We have reached nice performance on these batches. What was interesting is that contaminants that we have tested were never classified as pure, so we expect zero contamination tolerance applied at the laboratory at the moment. And all the contaminants were localized correctly in the on the image and mapped to correctly to the physical world. Also, we have low false negatives, which are around 3 to 6%, with a steady performance of at least 96%. Also, there is very low variability at each composition, so the models are mostly steady. And to analyze 100 seeds, it took us around 4 minutes. Compared to the pelleting, which it takes at least 15 minutes, or germination that takes at least 7 days, it's a big gain of time. So in conclusion, we developed the first high throughput and non-destructive methods that enables robust and supervised contaminant detection by adapting similar studies that already exist on some other fields or some other like the fruits. We also demonstrated high performance across 2 species using and different contamination levels with low false positives and 0 false negatives for pure seeds. We did not require massive data sets or exhaustive annotations, and we compensated for data scarcity. Some of the perspectives and limitations that could be addressed in the future, the variational autoencoders proved robust and reliable for this. However, we have not explored other generative methods such as GANs or the diffusion models. So this is something could be explored in the future. It could be explored on wider range of species to check if the models might fail. And we would like to reduce the false alerts in order not to lose seeds. So in conclusion, we have addressed the fragmentation of knowledge facing the seed analysis using X-rays. So we provided comprehensive synthesis of the current advances in seed analysis using X-rays to deliver a clear roadmap and identify challenges and opportunities in integrating X-ray imaging and AI in seed analysis. This would have been published in a book chapter. Also, for the 3 research questions, we investigated the critical challenges and we responded to each of these questions. For the first research question, we demonstrated the physiological safety of low-dose X-rays and clarified the contradictory observation and by following standard protocols linking ethics to seed physical quality and density, and not only the radiation. That has been published in Plant Methods. Our response to the second research question was that by proposing a physics-aware framework, which was X-Robustifier, that overcomes the non-standard imaging that exists now in seed testing. Also, we compensated for data scarcity and class imbalance, and it enabled robust and cross-species detection. This also has been published in Plant Methods. For the third research questions, we employed 3D tomography and unsupervised anomaly detection to bypass the annotation needs and to overcome the occlusions that might appear due to the industrial pellets, for example, and our methods enabled reliable contamination detection. And this is get accepted by seed science and technology. Regarding to our perspective, we would like to confidently integrate the X-rays that it should become official, and people can consider that they are really non-destructive, and to be able to go faster regarding to their development, and not overthinking regarding to if they are physiologically safe or not. Also, we would like to establish cross-laboratory coordination. For example, doing unified usage guideline between laboratory, also quality control procedures, and X-ray data sharing, so that other labs or all the labs will be able to use the data and build their own models. We'd like finally to push towards AI-assisted and modern and official seed testing workflows using X-rays as they are non-destructive and rapid and effective. I would like to share with you my contributions that I have done during my PhD. And finally, I would like to thank all the jury members, Bart and Berthe and Tony and Alexandre. Thank you for your time. I know it was hard for you this period, but I appreciate you being here. Also, I'd like to thank all the colleagues, collaborators for their support and generous sharing of your knowledge. And finally, I would like to thank GEVES that as this PhD was financed by GEVES and in a collaboration with LAIS and University of Alger. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherif, for the science presentation. We've now entered the second phase of this defense, which is the interaction with different jury members.